You know that gut punch you get when someone you love shows you exactly who they are? Yeah, that happened to me this year. And the worst part is, I saw it coming and still tried to believe they'd be better. My name's Aaron, I'm 29, and I've always been the responsible one in my family. That title will always belong to my younger brother, Brandon, but definitely the one they leaned on when things got messy. I wasn't a genius or anything. I didn't invent an app or flip real estate or win the lottery. I just got really good at saving, budgeting, and living under my means. I work in cybersecurity for a mid-sized tech firm, and between the long hours and my freelance gigs, I've built a decent safety net for myself. Nothing flashy. No sports car or condo with floor-to-ceiling windows. Just a modest 2-bedroom house in a quiet suburb, an emergency fund, and peace of mind. My parents always painted themselves as old school, hardworking, prideful. They owned a small hardware store for most of my childhood, the kind of place with flickering fluorescent lights and a tiny radio always playing 80s rock in the background. My mom ran the register, my dad stocked the shelves, and Brandon and I would hang out in the back doing homework while customers trickled in and out. They worked hard, no doubt, but money was always tight, and there was always this undercurrent of stress beneath everything. Anytime I asked for something, new shoes, birthday party, school trip, I got the same line. We're not the Rockefellers, Aaron. As we got older, things changed. The store shut down after a Home Depot opened 2 blocks away. My dad tried picking up some contractor work, but struggled with back pain. My mom bounced between cashier jobs at the grocery store and temp gigs. Meanwhile, Brandon drifted. He was always charming, always had a new scheme, new hustle, new thing that was going to make him rich. Crypto, drop shipping, Amazon FBA, selling supplements online, you name it, he tried it. None of it stuck. But he had this way of making everyone feel sorry for him when things didn't work out, especially our parents. I remember one Christmas about 4 years ago. Brandon showed up late, no gifts, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. My mom hovered over him like a wounded bird had landed in her kitchen. He's going through a hard time, she whispered, like that explained everything. I offered to let him crash at my place for a few weeks. He stayed for 5 months, never paid rent, left his dishes in the sink, burned a hole in my couch with a vape. When I finally asked him to move out, my mom told me I was cold, like I'd kicked a dog out into the rain. I don't say any of this to make myself look like a saint. I've made mistakes. I've been too generous sometimes, too quiet. But I always figured that's what family does. You help when you can, you step back when you need to. I just didn't realize how one-sided that philosophy would turn out to be. The thing that set everything in motion happened in June. I'd just gotten back from a work trip to Seattle and was sitting on my porch drinking tea when my mom called. She rarely calls, usually just texts, call me, and waits. So when her name lit up my phone, I answered right away. Hey, Mom. Everything okay? There was a pause, then a shaky breath. Aaron, your dad and I are in a bit of a situation. My stomach dropped. What kind of situation? Bills, she said. We're behind on the electric, the car payment, the mortgage. It's just been piling up. Your dad's been trying to pick up more shifts, but his back. He can barely get out of bed some mornings. That image alone hit hard. My dad was a proud man. The kind who never asked for help, even when he probably should have. The thought of him struggling to walk made my throat tighten. I'm sorry, I said. Is there anything I can do? Another pause. We hate asking, honey. You know we do. But we're about $5,000 short this month. Just to get caught up. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. My heart pounded. $5,000 was no joke, even for me. I had it, but it wasn't money I could toss around lightly. That was my buffer, my peace of mind. Still, I didn't hesitate. I can send it, I said. Today. There was a pause on the other end. Then, suddenly, she burst into tears. Oh, sweetheart. Thank you. I knew we could count on you. I promise we'll pay you back. We just need to get through this month. I told her not to worry about it. I told myself it was the right thing to do. I went inside, transferred the money, and texted her the confirmation. The next day she didn't call, or the day after that. But on the third day, I opened Instagram while waiting for my morning coffee to brew. And there it was. A picture of Brandon. Sunglasses on. Shirtless. Smiling wide with a cocktail in hand. Caption. Island life, baby. Palm tree tropical drink hashtag Caribbean vibes hashtag Familivique. I blinked. No way. I clicked his profile. Post after post from the last 2 days. A picture of my mom in a floppy sun hat sipping something pink. My dad lounging in a beach chair with a cigar. Brandon filming a slow-motion video of a resort pool with steel drum music playing in the background. My stomach twisted. I double-checked the date on the wire transfer, June 15th. The first post? June 17th. 2 days after I sent $5,000 they said was for overdue bills. I just sat there, holding my phone like it might burst into flames. I didn't say anything. Not that day. Not the next. I told myself maybe it was some weird coincidence. Maybe a friend paid for it. Maybe they won it. Maybe anything. Anything but the most obvious explanation. But as the days went by, the posts kept coming. My mom tagged in a beachside spa. My dad in a video dancing to a reggae band. Brandon bragging about the all-you-can-eat buffet and executive suite upgrade. And I kept quiet. Until 3 weeks later, when I got another call. This time it was my dad. "Hey, sport," he said casually, like nothing had happened. "Listen, your mom and I are trying to figure out this tax thing, and we might be in a little hole again. Nothing crazy. Just wondering if you could spot us another $2,000 until August." I didn't answer right away. I could feel my jaw clenching. "You okay?" he asked. I was quiet for a second longer. Then I said, "Sure. But can I ask something first?" "Of course. Did you use the last $5,000 for bills? Or for the Caribbean?" There was a pause. A long one. The kind that tells you everything before they even say a word. Then he cleared his throat. Look, Aaron, we needed a break. Your mom's been under so much stress. The doctor said she had to get her blood pressure down. Brandon found a deal, and we figured. You figured a resort vacation was more important than paying the mortgage? Aaron, don't be dramatic. I'm not. I'm just trying to understand how I went from helping you keep the lights on to funding your beach trip. That was the moment everything started to shift. When I realized this wasn't just about money. It was about respect. About how they saw me. About the fact that for all my sacrifices, all my efforts to be the responsible one, they still saw me as the fallback plan. The guy with the extra money. The one who would always say yes. But not anymore. I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I just ended the call. And that's when I started planning. Not revenge. Not yet. But something was brewing. Something quiet. Something patient. Because I knew, sooner or later, they'd ask again. And the next time, well, let's just say I wasn't going to be their ATM anymore. But that's not even the crazy part. The crazy part came later. Much later. When they came to me for something way bigger than money. And by then, it was already too late. I wish I could say that was the last time they ever asked for money. That after the phone call with my dad, they realized they'd crossed a line and maybe, just maybe, felt a little guilty. But no, that would be too easy. My family doesn't really operate on guilt. They operate on entitlement dressed up as need, and on expectations that never seem to run out. After I hung up that day, I didn't hear from either of them for nearly 2 weeks. No check-in texts. No half-hearted, "How are you?" Nothing. It was like the moment I stopped being useful, I disappeared from their radar. Which, to be honest, didn't surprise me. I'd gotten used to the pattern. I was the family's safety net. Quiet, dependable, invisible until needed. Like a fire extinguisher in a glass case. Break only in case of emergency. But 2 weeks later, Brandon texted me out of nowhere. No context, just, "Yo, any chance you can help me out with something? Need a loan for like a month." Nothing crazy. I didn't respond. A day passed. Then another. Then a follow-up. "Seriously, man. Just $1,200. I'll flip it in 2 weeks. Got this sneaker plug that's about to blow up. I'll even throw in interest." Interest. From Brandon. That alone was hilarious. The guy once borrowed my car and returned it with 2 parking tickets and no gas, then told me, "You should have warned me about that street." I didn't reply. Not because I was being petty, but because I was done. Or at least, I thought I was. That weekend, I got invited to a family barbecue at my parents' house. Nothing fancy, my mom said. Just burgers, hot dogs, a little music. Be nice to have everyone together again. And even though I had every reason to say no, something in me, maybe habit, maybe hope, said yes. I drove over around 4 p.m., carrying a pasta salad I made from scratch. When I walked into the backyard, it hit me like a wall. Laughter, music, the smell of grilled meat, the clinking of drinks. My parents, beaming. Brandon, already half a beer deep, flipping burgers like he was born for it. Aaron, My mom squealed, rushing over with a hug. You look skinny. Are you eating? Hi, Mom, I said, trying to smile. She took the salad from my hands. What is this? Oh, honey, you didn't have to bring anything. We've got more than enough. I looked around. The table was overflowing. Ribs, wings, shrimp skewers, expensive-looking desserts. I spotted bottles of Grey Goose and a cooler full of imported beer. Definitely nothing fancy. Brandon sauntered over, spatula in hand. There he is. The man, the myth, the money tree. I blinked. What? He grinned, like it was a joke. Kidding, bro, relax. Come grab a drink. We got that IPA you like. You still on that fancy beer kick? I didn't answer. Just nodded and sat down at the edge of the yard, sipping a warm soda while kids ran past me playing tag. Every now and then, someone would ask how work was. I'd answer politely, but mostly I just watched. My dad laughing with Brandon like they were business partners. My mom fussing over Brandon's plate. Want more ribs, sweetheart? While mine stayed empty. The cousins talking about Brandon's new business and how he was really turning things around. No one mentioned the $5,000. No one brought up the Caribbean. No one asked how I was. And I sat there thinking, wow, I don't belong here. Not really. Not in the way I thought. But the real moment? The breaking moment? That came after dinner. Everyone had eaten. The sun was dipping low. Brandon called for attention, clinking his beer bottle against a fork like he was toasting a wedding. Hey, everyone, quick thing, he said. So, some of you already know this, but I wanted to make it official. He pulled out a small black box and turned to his girlfriend, Cassie. I didn't even know he was dating anyone seriously. Cass, baby, you've been with me through the lowest lows and the highest highs, and I want to build a future with you. My heart stopped. He got down on one knee. Cassie gasped. People around us screamed. Someone dropped their plate. Will you marry me? She sobbed and nodded. They kissed. Applause erupted. My mom started crying, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. My dad patted Brandon on the back like he'd just won the Nobel Prize. And I just sat there, stunned, not because of the proposal, but because of what came next. My mom stood up with a giddy smile and raised her glass. We're so excited to help them get started, she said. And we've decided to contribute to their wedding fund. $10,000 to help them build the day of their dreams. More clapping. Cheers. Cassie covered her mouth in disbelief. And I felt like I'd been slapped. $10,000. 10,000. The same parents who told me they couldn't pay their electric bill. The same ones who cried on the phone, begging for $5,000 to keep the house. And now they were handing Brandon $10,000 for a wedding? It wasn't even about the money anymore. It was about what it meant. It meant I was a wallet, not a son. A silent investor in someone else's spotlight. And Brandon, golden boy, failed entrepreneur, irresponsible failure, was still the favorite. Always had been. Always would be. I stood up slowly and walked inside, needing a break from the noise. My chest felt tight. I stared at a framed photo on the hallway wall. Me at my college graduation. My parents weren't at the ceremony. Said it was too far and too expensive to travel. I remember sitting alone in my cap and gown, watching other families cheer while I took a selfie and went home. But they were here now, fully present, wallets open, proud beyond words. I leaned against the counter, trying to breathe. That's when I heard the voices. Brandon and my mom, in the kitchen. He doesn't even look happy, Brandon muttered. You think he's mad? He's always been like that, my mom said. Too serious. Honestly, I wish he'd loosen up. He's got a good job, no kids, no mortgage. What does he even need all that money for? Brandon chuckled. Exactly. I could flip that 10 grand into 50 if he'd just give it to me. He's too stingy for that. But it's okay. We'll figure it out. I backed away. My ears burned. My vision blurred. I felt something inside me snap. Not a loud, violent break, but the quiet click of a door locking shut. I walked out the front door without saying goodbye. No one noticed. No one followed. That was the moment everything changed. Because up until then, I'd always believed that maybe, just maybe, they didn't realize what they were doing. That maybe their favoritism was unconscious, a bad habit they didn't mean to lean into. But hearing them talk about me like that, like I was hoarding money for fun, like I owed them something, that was betrayal. And not just any betrayal. It was the kind that makes you sit down in your car for half an hour, staring at the dashboard, wondering how long you've been blind to it. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept replaying the moment. The toast. The proposal. The $10,000. My mom's voice in the kitchen. What does he even need all that money for? Like I didn't live alone. Like I didn't bust my back saving. Like I hadn't bailed them out more than once. I woke up the next morning to a text from Brandon. Yo bro, sorry if we caught you off guard. You good? Wanted to ask you something later this week. Nothing major. Hit me up. I didn't respond. But that's something he wanted to ask me. That's what pushed everything over the edge. Because a week later, he showed up at my house. Uninvited. Wearing a fresh new watch and a grin like nothing had happened. And when he told me what he wanted, let's just say that was the last time he ever walked through my front door. I opened the door just enough to block most of the entry with my body. It was a Saturday morning, gray and humid, and I had been in the middle of cleaning out my kitchen cabinets, something I did when I needed to feel in control. There he was, Brandon. Hoodie, joggers, new white sneakers, and a smug little smile that had aged poorly with time. Yo, finally, he said, like I owed him my Saturday. Been texting you all week, man. You good? I didn't answer. Just raised an eyebrow. He held up a to-go coffee tray like it was a peace offering. Brought you a flat white. You still drink these, right? I didn't move. He shifted his weight and laughed awkwardly. Come on, don't make me stand out here like a weirdo. I could have shut the door. I should have. But I stepped aside. He walked in like he owned the place. Same as he had 5 years ago, when he moved in for a week or two and stayed for nearly half a year. This time he made a beeline for the kitchen and dropped the coffee on the counter without asking. Place looks good, he said, peeking into the living room. Still got that same couch? Man, you need an upgrade. I saw this sectional on Facebook Marketplace. Real nice. You should let me hook you up. I stayed quiet. He sat down at the counter and finally got to the point. So, listen, I've been working on something new. Like, actually solid. A real plan this time. Cassie's cousin runs this events company. Weddings, corporate gigs, that kind of thing, and they're expanding into luxury rentals. Chairs, tables, linens, tents, you name it. High-margin stuff. Anyway, they need a partner for the buy-in. 50-50. I knew where this was going. Brandon leaned forward like he was about to share the cure for cancer. So, here's the play. I put in $5,000. You match it with 5, and we're co-owners. Passive income, bro. They already have bookings for the summer. It's a no-brainer. I stared at him. You just got engaged. Didn't mom and dad give you $10,000 for the wedding? He grinned. Yeah, but Cassie's set on this destination thing. Bali or Mexico, or whatever. So we're saving that for the venue and flights. This investment is separate. Trust me, I'm thinking long-term now. I said nothing. I'll pay you back in 3 months, he added. With interest. Real interest this time. Like you paid back the car repairs? Or the $2,000 I spotted you in 2019? Or the rent you never paid when you lived here? He laughed like I was bringing up inside jokes. Come on, man. That was forever ago. I just looked at him. No anger. No raised voice. Just silence. Brandon's smile faltered. What? He asked. You don't believe in me? I took a slow breath and walked to the sink. I believe in people who show they can follow through, I said. Not ones who show up when they need something. He stood. The smile was gone now, replaced by something sour. Wow. Okay. That's how it is. I didn't answer. He grabbed his untouched coffee from the counter. You know what, man? Forget it. I thought you were family. I let that one hang in the air. Then I said, yeah, so did I. He left. No slamming door, no dramatic exit. Just silence. The kind that doesn't come with relief, only clarity. That day marked a shift. Not loud, not theatrical, but real. I wasn't going to be their fallback anymore. And that decision didn't come with applause. It came with silence. Loneliness. Second-guessing. Because cutting off family, especially when they don't even realize they're the problem, feels like amputating a limb while people tell you you're just being sensitive. The first month after that was rough. The text slowed, then stopped. My mom sent a couple messages. Are you okay? And we miss you. But they weren't followed up. No calls. No visits. It was like I'd flipped an invisible switch and disappeared from their family map. At work, I kept my head down. Logged hours, fixed problems, ran security drills. On paper, everything was fine. But inside, I felt like I was standing in the middle of a field after a tornado, alone, shaken, and not sure which way was up. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the loss of something deeper. A belief I didn't even realize I'd been holding on to. That someday my parents would see me. really see me. Not as a wallet, not as a safety net, but as a son worth respecting. That hope had been quietly keeping me going for years. And now it was gone. I'd hit bottom. Not financially. I still had my emergency fund, still had my house, my job, my routines. But emotionally, I was depleted. There were nights I'd come home and just sit on the edge of my bed, fully dressed, staring at the floor, wondering if I'd overreacted, wondering if I should have just said yes, wondering if being the responsible one was really worth it if it meant being alone. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It's solid. You can build from it. And slowly, that's what I did. Not with some big, inspirational comeback. No sudden promotions or viral startup success. Just small, steady steps. I started going to the gym again. Not for aesthetics, just to feel something shift. I woke up early, lifted heavy things, and walked out with shaking arms and a clearer mind. I began cooking real meals. Not microwave dinners or takeout. Actual recipes. I found a weird comfort in chopping vegetables and searing meat in a pan. It gave my hands something to do. Gave my evenings purpose. I reached out to an old college friend, David, who I hadn't spoken to in years. We met for coffee, and to my surprise, it wasn't awkward. We talked for hours. He introduced me to a small hiking group he was part of, and suddenly, my weekends had structure. Fresh air. Laughter. I started therapy, too. Quietly. No one knew. Just me and a woman named Evelyn who listened without judgment and helped me untangle years of buried resentment. "You've been auditioning for their approval your whole life?" she said during one session. "What if I told you the role doesn't exist?" That line stuck with me, because she was right. I'd spent years trying to earn something they were never going to give me, trying to be enough for people who only saw my value when they were in crisis. So I stopped performing. I stopped justifying, and I started building something for myself. By fall, things felt different. Cleaner. Simpler. My savings had grown again. I'd picked up a few freelance cybersecurity clients and was finally considering the business idea I'd shelved years ago. A consultancy for small businesses who couldn't afford full-time IT teams but desperately needed security guidance. I started drafting a plan. Bought a domain. Sketched out services. Nothing flashy, just smart, slow growth. In November, I got a small handwritten envelope in the mail. No return address. Just my name. Inside was a wedding invitation. Brandon and Cassie, February 17th. All-inclusive resort in Cancun. Printed on thick ivory cardstock with a gold embossed border. And at the bottom, no gifts, just your presence would mean the world. I stared at it for a long time. Then I flipped it over. Nothing. No note. No personal message. Just an invitation. As if we'd all been on good terms. As if nothing had happened. 2 days later, my mom called. Not to ask how I was. Not to apologize. But to ask if I was coming. "Brandon's really hoping you'll be there," she said. "He feels bad about how that conversation went. You know how he is. He's got a good heart. Just doesn't always think things through." I didn't say anything. "And, if you were coming, we were hoping you could help with one small thing," she added, almost as an afterthought. "What thing?" "Well, it's about the rehearsal dinner. The resort wants payment up front. Your dad's card got declined, and we're still waiting on a reimbursement from the caterer. We were just wondering if you'd be willing to cover it, and we'll pay you back once we get it sorted." There it was. The roll. The fallback. The ATM. I could feel it, like a jacket they were trying to slip back over my shoulders. But this time, it didn't fit. Something had shifted in me. And as I listened to her talk, I realized this wasn't just a moment. It was a test. And how I answered would define everything that came next. But I didn't give my answer then. I told her I'd think about it. And I did. For 3 full days. Because what I was about to do would take planning, patience, and just the right timing. Because they wanted me at the wedding. And oh, I'd be there. Just not in the way they expected. 3 days. That's how long I sat with it. My mom's request, the invitation, the audacity of it all. For 3 days, I didn't respond. I didn't call. I didn't even look at the RSVP card tucked in the back of the ivory envelope. I just thought about the years I'd spent quietly supporting them while Brandon coasted on charm and excuses. About the countless times I made space for them, for him, sacrificing weekends, money, and mental bandwidth just to keep things peaceful. About the way they'd toasted to his engagement with the same breath they used to beg me for help. And most of all, I thought about the moment in my kitchen when Brandon stood there, asking me for $5,000 like it was a tip for good service. There was a time, not long ago, when I might have caved. But that version of me was gone. And the version of me that remained? He didn't want peace. He wanted clarity. So I started planning. Not to destroy them, not to hurt them, but to show them exactly what they'd built. Brick by brick. The first thing I did was dig. Not dirt on Brandon. That would have been too easy, and honestly, I didn't need it. His track record spoke for itself. Instead, I focused on the wedding. Cassie had posted a full Pinterest board with color palettes, floral arrangements, and dream venues. Public, of course. I scrolled through it like a detective analyzing a crime scene. Every detail was there. Pink peonies, gold accents, a beachfront ceremony under a wooden arch. It was real. Booked. Confirmed. A destination wedding in Cancun, February 17th. About 70 guests. Ceremony at 4:30 p.m. sharp. I clicked through the resort site, Sun and Sol Grand Riviera, and pulled up the group reservation link. Cassie had even posted the code. That was my opening. I booked a single night. Not for February 17th. For February 15th. 2 days before the wedding. Why? Because I wanted to observe. Watch the setup. See who came early. Gauge the mood. It gave me flexibility. And, more importantly, it gave me proximity. Next, I set a calendar alert for every major deadline. Flight confirmations, RSVPs, vendor due dates. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was tracking. Then I called David. The same friend I'd reconnected with after cutting ties with Brandon. David worked in digital marketing, but more importantly, he was the most ruthlessly organized person I knew. I explained the situation, left out some emotional details, but gave him the bones. I need help making a point, I said. Something that's not illegal, not cruel, but unforgettable. He laughed. You want a psychological slap without leaving a bruise. Exactly. David was in. We met that weekend over coffee and whiteboards. Brainstormed. Pitched angles. Vetoed anything that felt too dramatic or out of character. This wasn't about a scene. It was about an echo. Something they wouldn't shake off easily. What we landed on was simple. I'd go to the wedding. But not as a guest. And not as a ghost, either. I'd be visible. Just not in the way they expected. No suit. No gift. No RSVP. Just presence. But for it to work, I needed a symbol. Something quiet but piercing. Something that would sit in their minds longer than any outburst ever could. So I started working on a letter. Not a rant. Not a confrontation. A letter. Addressed to Brandon. Handwritten. Folded and sealed in an envelope. A mirror, basically. One that reflected every moment he'd overlooked. Every favor he'd forgotten. Every time he'd spoken about me like I was a vending machine with unlimited options. I wrote it and rewrote it. Burned the first draft. The second. By the fifth version, it stopped sounding angry. It sounded precise. I'll share the full thing later, but here's a line I remember vividly. You've always asked what you could get from me. Not once have you asked what it cost. In January, I got an email from my mom. Subject line, need your RSVP. The message was polite. Too polite. Like it had been copy-pasted from some bridal website. I didn't respond, but I knew she took silence as a maybe. A week later, she called. I let it go to voicemail. Hey, sweetheart, just checking in. Haven't heard back about the wedding. Brandon and Cassie are finalizing numbers. We'd really love to see you there. Also, your father wanted to talk to you about the rehearsal dinner thing. Just a quick favor. No pressure, but call us when you can. Quick favor. No pressure. The greatest hits. I archived the voicemail and kept building my plan. David and I made a checklist. Researched the resort layout. Done. Found blueprints online from a wedding vendor's blog. Knew where the ceremony would be, where the dinner would be held, and most importantly, where the vendor entrance was. Book a one-night stay. Done. I used a different credit card, just in case. Schedule delivery of the letter. This took the most thought. I wanted it to land in Brandon's hands on the morning of his wedding, when tensions would be high, when there'd be no time to talk or argue, just enough time to read it and feel it. David helped me coordinate with a local concierge service. I hired them to deliver a sealed envelope, labeled from Aaron, to the groom's suite at 10 a.m. on February 17th, just before haircuts and boutonnieres. The woman running the service didn't even ask what was inside. Apparently, grooms get a lot of surprise letters. I wasn't the only brother with something to say. In the meantime, I kept living my life. The consultancy? Gaining traction. I landed my second client in mid-January and was getting referrals. The gym? Still consistent. Therapy? Ongoing. But beneath it all, a slow anticipation was building. Not revenge. Not really. More like justice. The kind that doesn't make headlines. The kind that just lands. A week before the wedding, Brandon texted me again. Yo, need to know if you are coming. Cassie's freaking out about numbers. Also, can you front the deposit for the DJ? They need it by Friday. No punctuation. No please. No acknowledgement of the last time we spoke. I stared at the message. Then, without thinking, I typed one sentence. I'll be there. Sent. He replied in under a minute. Legend. Appreciate you, bro. I didn't say another word. Didn't ask about the DJ. Didn't confirm anything else. And I knew, deep down, that he thought that meant I'd cover it. He thought, I'll be there, meant the same thing it always had. I'll catch you. But not this time. This time, it meant, you'll see me. And that was going to be enough. Because the wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a stage. And for once, I didn't have to be the silent one in the wings. I just had to show up. And let the truth speak for itself. February 15th. I landed in Cancun late in the afternoon. The sky was coral-colored, the ocean visible from the airport shuttle. I kept to myself. Checked in with no fanfare. Wore sunglasses, hoodie, hat. Incognito, but not hiding. The resort was massive. Pools like lakes. Staff that greeted me like royalty. I walked the grounds slowly. Found the wedding setup already in progress. The arch was up. Flowers arriving. Staff rehearsing the dinner layout. I saw my parents walking near the pool. My dad in a polo shirt. My mom in oversized sunglasses. They didn't see me. I stayed back. Watched. Observed. They looked happy. Unbothered. At peace. And weirdly, I didn't feel anger. I felt distance. Like I was watching a show I used to be in. I turned, walked to my room, and set my alarm for the next morning. February 16th would be quiet. But February 17th? That was showtime. I'll tell you exactly what happened that day. But first, just know this. Brandon opened that letter. He read every word. And when he looked up from it, he didn't smile. He didn't laugh. He just stood there. Still. For once. And that stillness? That's when I knew the plan had worked. But trust me, that wasn't even the main event. Because what happened next? That was the twist no one saw coming. The morning of February 17th started warm and still. The sun filtered softly through gauzy resort curtains as I sat on the edge of the bed, flipping the envelope in my hand for the 100th time. It was simple, white, sealed neatly, with Brandon written in dark blue ink across the front. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel angry. What I felt was something quieter, steadier. Like this was just a page being turned in a story that had dragged on too long. At exactly 9:45 a.m., I slipped the envelope into the padded folder provided by the local concierge and handed it off to the hotel staff member we'd arranged. A local man named Luis. Polite, professional, and perfectly uninterested in whatever drama he might be delivering. It will be in his suite before 10, he assured me with a nod. I thanked him, slid him an extra tip, and returned to my room. There was nothing left to do but wait. The letter was all I needed. It wasn't angry. I'd made sure of that. It wasn't some revenge manifesto or a sob story begging for understanding. It was a mirror, a surgical reflection of every choice Brandon had made, every line he'd crossed, every dollar he'd casually borrowed like it came with no strings. I'll share an excerpt now because this is what broke him. You've always seen me as a wallet, a backup plan, a silent brother in the background who says yes because it's easier than fighting. But every yes costs something. Time, sleep, dignity. Every yes built a version of you that never had to change. You stood on a beach and toasted your engagement with the money I gave you to save your home. And I said nothing. You asked me to fund your next venture while laughing about the last one. And I said nothing. But I'm not saying nothing anymore. You'll get married today. You'll smile for cameras and kiss under an arch built on money you never earned. And I'll be there, not to support you, but to witness what you've built. Because this isn't about revenge. This is about recognition. And you're going to remember, for the rest of your life, the moment your older brother stopped being the safety net. I waited. By 11 a.m., the resort buzzed with wedding prep. People rushed past my suite, dressed in pastel linen and panic. I could hear laughter, clinking glasses, vendors barking instructions in 2 languages. Every detail was being obsessed over, except the one they couldn't control. Brandon. He wasn't smiling. I saw him from a distance once, around noon, pacing near the edge of the beach ceremony site, staring at the ocean like it might give him an answer. He wasn't talking to Cassie, wasn't laughing with the groomsmen, just pacing, staring. Louise had delivered the letter. Confirmed it. Brandon had opened it right there in his suite. Alone. I knew that because I paid Louise a little extra to wait in the hallway and let me know the moment Brandon finished reading. He didn't say anything. Louise had told me with a shrug. Just sat there, quiet, then folded it and put it in his pocket. That was all I needed. I didn't attend the ceremony. I wasn't interested in watching him pretend everything was fine. Instead, I took a walk through the resort's outer gardens, bought myself a drink from a bar that faced the water, sat quietly in the shade as the ceremony unfolded 100 yards away. At 4:47 p.m., the music stopped. Cheers echoed across the lawn. Brandon and Cassie were married. But the fallout? That had only just begun. It started with the rehearsal dinner bill. Remember how my mom had asked if I could cover it up front? Well, she'd assumed, without asking, that I would. So they booked it. Flowers, lighting, an expensive 3-course meal for 50 people on a private deck by the sea. And I didn't pay, which meant the resort charged it to my parents' room. And when they tried to check out the next day, they were met with a surprise bill, $5,278.41. Their card? Declined. Their second card? Also declined. Panic ensued. I found out about this later, through Cassie's cousin, who I'd met briefly at the bar the night before. She thought I was hilarious and ended up oversharing after a few drinks. They were freaking out this morning. She laughed, barely able to contain it. Your mom looked like she'd seen a ghost. Your dad was arguing with the manager, trying to say the charge was a mistake. She took another sip. Then Brandon just left. Said he needed air. Didn't even help. I didn't say much. Just smiled. Because the best revenge isn't loud. It's lonely. But the money wasn't even the real blow. That came later. After the wedding. After the photos and the fake Instagram captions and the congratulatory DMs. It came in April. Cassie left Brandon. Turns out, when you build a marriage on delusion and entitlement, it crumbles fast. According to David, who'd stayed in touch with Cassie's cousin, things had started falling apart within weeks. Brandon had floated the idea of borrowing the rest of the wedding money to invest in yet another business opportunity. Cassie said no. He got defensive. She dug deeper. Found out about other debts he hadn't disclosed. Loans from friends. Credit card balances. A bounce check for the photographer. And then she found the letter. He'd kept it, folded neatly in the bottom drawer of their nightstand. She read it. Twice. And that's when things snapped. I wasn't there for the breakup, obviously. But word travels. Cassie moved out. Took the apartment furniture with her. Filed for an annulment within 6 weeks. Brandon called me after that. Voicemail. His voice cracked. Rambling. Trying to sound casual, but barely holding it together. Hey, I know things have been weird, but I could really use someone to talk to. Everything's just falling apart, man. I get it if you're mad, but I dunno. Call me. I never did. And my parents? Well, they tried to do damage control. Called once in May, then again in June. Left long messages, full of regret and half apologies that never actually said sorry. Just versions of, we didn't know how bad it got. You've always been so independent. We thought you didn't need us. Brandon's had a hard life, you know. We just tried to support him. I listened to each one, then deleted them. Because forgiveness is a choice. But access? That's a privilege. And they'd lost it. Today, it's been 9 months since the wedding. I haven't spoken to Brandon since. My parents have finally stopped calling. My life. It's better than it's ever been. The consultancy is thriving. I signed my biggest client 2 months ago, ironically, a chain of bridal boutiques that needed cybersecurity audits. Full circle, I guess. David and I are launching a side project this fall, a budgeting app for freelancers. It's nerdy, but it's ours. I bought a new couch. A nice one. Paid for it in full. And every morning, I wake up with a sense of peace I never used to have. Because I no longer live in the shadow of their expectations. I no longer build my worth around what I can give them. I reclaim my life. Silently. Intentionally. And they still don't understand how they lost me. That's the beauty of it. They thought revenge would be fire and fury. They thought I'd yell, scream, storm out, or cut them off in some dramatic way. But no, I just stopped giving. And that was the loudest silence they'd ever heard.
I asked our Perplexity this thing, and it says,
So our sponsor, Perplexity, said, yes, this has actually been documented in wild alligators. Males in heavily polluted lakes have, on average, smaller penises and other reproductive problems linked to hormone-disrupting chemicals. We are shrinking alligator penises, ladies and gentlemen.
And not only alligator
20 to
penises.
25% smaller penis sizes compared to males from a cleaner reference lake.
And
Males of lower testosterone levels, around 70% lower. Abnormal relationships between hormone levels and penis growth, unlike alligators from cleaner lakes. Alligators from polluted lakes also show other reproductive issues, abnormal sex hormone patterns, altered gonads, low hatching success, various birth defects, all consistent with exposure to endocrine-disrupting contaminants, EDCs, such as DDT derivatives, dieldrin, PCBs, and related compounds. Wow. So it's all endocrine disruptors from pollution. Oh, boy. Yeah, I mean, you would think that this would sound the alarm. Like,
And this is not new. He's dead. This is old work.
oh. And no one knows. Yeah, it's never discussed. First of all, there's not a lot of people that say, first problem on my list today, alligator penis sizes. It's a real issue. Like, you're in front of Congress. We got to talk. Alligator penis sizes are shrinking. They'd kick you out of the building.
Actually, Lou Gillette, went to Congress and he gave a talk and he said, every man in this room is half the man his grandfather was.
As far as testosterone levels, right?
And penis size. Well, he didn't measure their penis. but
Dig grandpa
he was
up and
making
check it
this
out.
point,
Yeah,
and
I
fertility
understand.
and all this. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it completely makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is how little attention that's being paid. You would think that in a society that is, America is also facing a potential population collapse. People don't think about that, but our reproduction numbers, we're not reproducing. Yeah, they're down quite a bit, and they're not at the level that we need in order to keep our population.
It's the normal shape of the population is like this, right? So this is up here, not very many people, and down here, lots and lots of people.
And this is terms of
And
age,
it's
older or
like
younger at the
going
bottom.
like this.
Right.
Now, lots of people are living longer, but few are down here. And then what that means is the ones down here are supposed to support the ones up here,
But there's not enough of them.
but not enough of them.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a huge societal problem.
Well, it's just so confusing how few people are even aware of this. We were talking, I didn't realize it had been 5 years since our last podcast, which is pretty crazy. But in that 5 years, you barely hear about it. It's occasional. People bring up certain chemicals they think are bad. Oh, avoid this. Paul Saladino was the one that showed that the paper cups that you get from a coffee shop, that if you take that paper away, what you have is essentially this plastic membrane, and that's what you're drinking your coffee out of. You're not drinking your coffee out of paper. And how terrible these things are for you. But even that, it's like people just dismiss it. The line around Starbucks is always the same. There's always people going to get their coffee. They don't think anything of it, and they're just consuming these chemicals that mess up your health, mess up your vitality, your energy levels, everything, brain fog.
But whose responsibility is it,
Well, to talk about it, I think it's ours. It's certainly
You and
yours
me,
and
or-
mine. And, we'll spread this word and more people discuss it. And I think more people need to be aware that this directly impacts you. Like, this is not like in the future, I don't have to think about it, I'll be dead. No, it directly impacts your health, your energy levels, your vitality right now as a